Hi there, I'm April Callis-Birchmeier. I'm a certified change management professional and project management professional. And today on this LinkedIn Live, I wanted to share with you a conversation about the differences between change management and project management. And I feel uniquely qualified to talk about this because I am both a change management professional, a certified change management professional, CCMP, which is an accreditation, a certification from the Association of Change Management Professionals. I'm also a PMP, a project management professional, which is a certification granted from the Project Management Institute. And I'm both a Project Management Institute trainer, and I also teach change management and help people achieve their certified change management professional certification. So that's kind of my credentials here and why I know I can speak to this about the differences and the similarities between change management and project management. One of the things that I think is so important to recognize is that there are some significant changes or differences between the two disciplines. Project management is primarily looking at the applying the skills and the tools and techniques to activities which are required to deliver planned change. So we have like a new system is a planned change. We have new processes sometimes are a planned change. We have a lot of different types of planned changes. And if you've ever had, even just a Windows update, you know that these changes take a lot of planning and a lot of coordination among the technical team, the project team, the business owners, the sponsors of that initiative. And so we have a very usually rigid scope when we are a project manager. We are looking at time and cost and quality parameters. We have, kind of a three-legged stool, right? Time, resources, and our kind of our quality parameters of what we're accomplishing. And this is really structured. Change management really focuses on the application of tools as skills as well. And it's thinking about these in relationship to the activities required to implement and sustain the delivered change. So these are things like influencing behavior, communications, business process redesign, training and development, organizational culture, facilitating new ways of working. So the focus for the project management team is really focusing on delivering the planned change. And the change management team is working on sustaining the delivered change. So it's a little bit of a difference, and it seems like maybe that's nuanced. It's not that big a deal. It actually is a really big deal. Honestly, it's a big deal because I feel like the way that the change management team and the way the project management team, even when we integrate the change management plan and the project management plan, when we bring those two pieces together, even with that, there's different ways of working. And we're kind of focusing on different tasks. For example, the project team is focusing on that delivery of that planned change, which is a new system, a new program, a new technology. Perhaps it's a new structure within the organization, but they are focusing on the technical side primarily. So is the software completed? Is development done? Has testing been completed? What is the sprint that we're using? If we're a agile shop, what is the waterfall plan that we're using if we're not? How do we intend to gather requirements and then assign work and then monitor that work and then complete that work and mitigate for any risks that we come across? And also, how do we then migrate all of that technology work into the system that is going to be going live? So there's a lot of moving parts with that project management team. And so that's where project management is different than change management, which is really focusing on the people. the people who will be adopting the new change, not necessarily the tools and techniques of the new system, but how the people will be able to learn about and become competent in with their knowledge and skills and abilities in this change. And then when we know we have people who are able to navigate the new system, who've learned through their training and development and coaching and mentoring how they should use this new system or tool to operate, then the people are going through also a mindset shift, a behavior change, a business process change in their behavior. And so that's really different than working alongside of your technical team who is completing tasks and ensuring that that work is done. That project team is really focusing on completion of deliverables, whereas that change management team is many times focusing on helping those stakeholders, who is anyone affected by the change, helping our stakeholders to adopt that change in both their business process, in their activities, their behavior, their skill sets, but also in the mindset shift that they have to go through. I think this mindset shift is the real piece that differentiates between the project management team and the change management team in some ways. Because when we're thinking about our methodology, our project management team is thinking about the organization and management of activities and resources to complete the project. But our change management methodologies are typically emphasizing how we will help people to change and the activities that we know will help them to adapt this new change. We're thinking about how do we help people move from their behavior in the past into new sorts of behavior in the future. And so that's why it's so important to have both of the organizational change management effort and the project management effort integrated together in the project plan. And I love it when I have a great project management team because, incorporating these change management milestones into the project plan is extremely helpful. And sometimes I have to tell you, I'm fortunate to be on a project where we have a scheduler who is kind of wrangling all of these tasks and ensuring that everybody who has something due is working on that. They want to get a percentage complete, and that even the change management tasks are completed on time and our target, so that we're ensuring that we're going to deliver this change, this initiative to the organization when it should be, when it's time. I think that also there's some different tools and techniques that we use, for change management. Many times we're thinking about how do we describe the change in a relevant and relatable way? How do we share the information of the change, not just send an email, which I know this is the first go-to for everybody when we're thinking about our organizational change. The first impulse we all have is send an email, send an email. But email is not the most effective tool. I don't know if you have noticed, but emails are sometimes unread. Just saying. So I think that it's really critical to plan beyond the email. How else can we get to people? Can we use TikTok or shorts? Can we do a podcast? Can we create a video newsletter? Can we create a paper newsletter? Can we send something out? Can we have a billboard? I mean, what could we do? I'd love to think about, like, can we create a hologram that would go to every person and walk them through how to do their training, right? Walk them through as a coach. I mean, that would be awesome. So there's a lot of tools that we're using that we need to use for people to understand this change and how it impacts them. So when I'm envisioning all of these exciting future states, I think that it's really important that we spend that time wisely, and that the project team is really empowered to drive that schedule and to ensure that the change management team and all the change tasks that have been integrated into the change plan and the project plan are all getting completed so that we're able to really make sure that we add value to the organization. Now, that's the one area where there is no distinction between organizational change management and project management. Both add value to the organization. Both are essential for successful change. Now, I do have to tell you, I've had project directors who have said, well, why can't we just tell people to change and they will just do it? I mean, if somebody tells me to change, I just do it. I hear that, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that just by telling someone change, they will do it. I think there's a variety of pieces we have to help with. We have to, of course, tell that story of change so people can understand it. With whatever communication vehicles we're using, we have to have a story that makes sense to people why we're doing something. I think we also need to ensure that our leaders, our sponsors, our managers and supervisors are completely engaged in that change. I think that it's so critically important that I spend a lot of time working with sponsors. I spend a lot of time working with sponsors who are leaders in their organization and really believe and actually are correct that they are excellent leaders. They truly are excellent leaders. But that doesn't mean they always know what to do as a sponsor. Just because you know how to lead a team or lead your organization does not necessarily guarantee success as a sponsor, because the sponsor has very particular tasks and a role and responsibility to ensure that they are communicating in a way that those stakeholders can hear and access, and that they are visible, they are active, they are involved with this change all the way through the entire project timeline. Then I think one of the keys is to really communicate well. And as I said, I'm not talking about sending an email necessarily, but the way that we communicate, and if we get that communication out to the right target audience at the right time and the right place, we really can be effective as change professionals. Sometimes I find that people think communications is all change management is, but it's not. There's a lot more to change management than communications. We have stakeholder engagement. How do we engage with those stakeholders to ensure they know what's going on? We have learning and development. There's so much training that we can do. And when we're talking about that next phase of developing and supporting our end users and our leaders and learning this new change and how we're supposed to work together through it, I think that learning and development sometimes is relegated to training. But there's so much more to training than training. Training is just showing you what you need to do to be able to build your knowledge and your skills and abilities about your role going forward in the new world. But I think there's a lot of other options as well. We can have one of the other options I like is mentoring, where somebody is being mentored by someone with more experience, or maybe we're providing mentoring. Maybe we have our stakeholders, our end users are mentoring others in how to use their system. I think coaching is a terrific tool once training's completed. I don't think we should do coaching necessarily before training. I think, though, after training, as a reinforcement, as a support, is ideal. I think also having learning labs of some sort where you have a subject, like we're going to do a Zoom learning lab and we're going to focus on how to submit expenses today, right? And everybody who joins can see the instructor's screen, the trainer's screen, and they are following along and doing it in their own system for themselves. I think that we have many different options on how we can transfer knowledge, how we can cement that understanding of what's going on, and really use people in the organization to help each other connect to each other so that nobody feels like they don't know how to use the system or to be effective or to get better at it. So, and then finally, I have the thought about, we really have to focus on the why of the change whenever we have resistance starting up. Now, resistance is really natural. I'm resistant a lot of days when I have to listen to my alarm and get up early and go do an activity, go to the gym. Uh, Maybe I'm running somebody on an errand. It's hard sometimes to do things that are hard. It's resistant. It forces us sometimes to really have to fight through that resistance to get to the good stuff. But in change, sometimes resistance is a mindset issue, right? It's where I think that people don't feel that they have enough information about the why of the change, about how this change is going to roll out, or maybe they don't feel like they support the change because they don't agree with the direction of the organization. All of these things can cause resistance, and that sense of resistance can trip you up as a change management professional. I have a lot of different ways of looking at resistance and sort of navigating resistance. But I think one of the big pieces is really to understand that people are different. And some people adopt and adapt to change very, very easily. It's very fast for them. It's not a big deal. They're used to kind of going with the flow. And then we have a lot of people who are not like that, people who are less flexible about things, who feel a bit more um, frustrated or threatened or aggravated that they have to change the way they do things. And that's just a natural difference between people. It's not something that we can control for, but it is something that I think understanding and empathy can be very extremely helpful in this case. So when I'm thinking about how do we help those who are resisting, that's one of the ways that I'd like to think about it is just kind of recognizing, first off, that everybody's different, that we have different levels of tolerance of change, we have different levels of experience of change, and recognizing these differences, we can be patient as people shift their mindsets from their current state over to that future state, over to that changed state. When I think about different levels of experience with change, it makes me think of my husband. He has when he was young, when he was a kid, he grew up in one town. His parents always lived in that town. His mother still lives in that town. And so the experience of changing and moving, he didn't experience that as a young child, through his childhood or his teen years. Now, I'm very different than that. I moved the first time, I think, when I was 7, and then when I was 14, and then 20, and then 21, and on and on. I felt like I was changing locations frequently. I was going through a lot of different locations, and even though and so that gave me a different perspective into physically moving houses. When I had to move, I kind of knew what to expect. I had to pack all my things. I was going to have to start over again in making friends. There would be a new school. There would be a new bus routine. All of these new pieces would come about. And not that I enjoyed them or really was seeking them out, but I learned from them what to do when I was going through that change. Whereas my husband never had to think about packing up his house or changing schools or friends or bus routes. So I think it's just different experiences, different tendencies. Some of us are more flexible. Some of us are less flexible in terms of enjoying routine. And then I think, of course, we always have the impact. Now, when we are being impacted by a change and we no longer are able to do the things we want to do, it's really frustrating, and that's a loss for us. And there's always loss when we have change. We can never say we have change with no losses at all. There will always be some loss. But I think one of the pieces that are important to think about when we're losing is what is it that we get to keep. There are many things we get to keep when that change happens. And I think focusing on what stays the same, focusing on what we keep is really essential to helping people make that mindset shift and to adapt and adopt that new current state. I know when I was a kid, when we were moving and changing from one house to the next, one town to the next, the thing that stayed the same was my family was the same. When you have pieces you can look to and say, well, this is at least is not changing, that can sometimes be comforting as you go through that mindset shift and that change process. When you have things that everything is changing at once, that can really be a lot more difficult to navigate, and it can actually really make people feel like they've lost sort of a sense of control around their environment. So many times when I'm working on an organizational change, I'll do a change impact assessment. I want to understand how this change will impact the stakeholders. And then I also do a change impact assessment of the environment, not just how is my change that I'm working on or thinking about impacting the stakeholder group that I'm working with and thinking about, but what are the other changes going on in the organization? And how are they impacting this stakeholder group? Sometimes when I do this stakeholder mapping, I'll see that the stakeholder group is being impacted by many changes all at once, but nobody who is running those changes seems to know that their change is not the only one. And that just speaks sometimes to our own narrow-sightedness, where we have our blinders on and we're only looking at our project that we're thinking about. We're not necessarily looking around at the other projects who are impacting that same stakeholder group. And so that's a good part of change impact that I like to review in the stakeholder mapping, where I can see what are the other pieces that are impacting this group. All right, so let's think about what strategies project managers can use to implement change, because we know there's specific strategies that project managers can use it to their advantage to help stakeholders adopt. And one of those tools really is that communication. Now, a lot of times a project management team will create, or a project management team will create a communication plan for that project management team. And it will talk about who they're going to communicate with and how they're going to communicate. One of the things that's interesting is that the change management team also has a communication plan and is focused on the stakeholders. How are we communicating to the stakeholders what this change is? How do we communicate with them about what they should be doing next? So it's two different types of communication plan, but they both exist in the project plan, and sometimes they can get a little bit confusing. I think when project managers use the strategy of leveraging that change management communication plan, they can really be effective by getting their message out to the stakeholder group. When I think about change management, I think about sustainability. I think about the fact that although we're very focused during the project on helping people to be communicated with, to revise and review and adapt business processes, when we're thinking about the learning and development that people need to be able to use the new tools, the new system, and we think about the support they need going forward and how to deal with some of their resistance that might be kicking up as a result of learning the new system. When I think about all these pieces aligning for the stakeholder group, and I'm also thinking about sustainability, I think when I get to that point where I'm moving from a project into a sustained change, where I'm now ensuring that this change is sustainable in the organization, that's a really important piece. Now, most of the project management professionals at that point in time have completed the project and actually are starting to roll off as resources. They're starting to gain approval to leave that project. But the change management team lags behind the project management team in the sense that people take a longer time to adopt the change and to adapt to that new world than our systems do. And so there's support that has to happen. And that support is key in ensuring that our change is sustainable. I don't know if you've ever been on a change where it wasn't going well. Maybe you don't know your sponsor. Maybe people are aggravated. The project team has kind of said, we're done. And then somebody in leadership is like, this is a mess. We're going to go back to what we were doing before. Very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And it's a really difficult way to go through any type of event, right? To get to the end and think, no, this is not going to work, and then have to go back. When we put our effort behind sustaining the change, when we are ensuring that we have supports in place, that we have a knowledge transfer in place, that we have a way to sustain this change to go forward, that sustainability is really what we're after with change management. We're after sustaining that delivered change. And that means that change becomes operational. That change becomes the way of doing business, standard operating procedure, way of working, whatever you want to call it. It is the current state. It is the future state. It's the way business is done until we make another change. And I have to say that when I talk about change management, it feels like in a way I'm talking about, one particular change, and then we sustain that, and then we kind of do a lessons learned, and we think about like what went well, how can we learn from this, what didn't go well, how can we learn from this as we plan the next change initiative. But in reality, it's like all of the change is happening all the time, right? Like we are working on multiple projects at one time, and various states of change and various scopes of change. And so it's not cut and dried where we can just say, oh, now we're moving into sustainability and we'll focus only on that. A lot of times we're just going and helping people sustain that change, putting sustainability activities in place, transitioning to operations so that we can have the operations team involved in the normal day-to-day practice of what was a change and is now normal operating status. And we're getting all to that point all at one time. So it's essential that the recognition is there that the delivery of the planned change really is on the project management team. And then the sustaining of the delivered change really is the point of the change management team. When I think about, change that is project management and change management, and they're integrated together, many times I'm thinking about the fact that change can be both organizational and individual at the same time. So we know that on the organizational side of things, our change management efforts, we're looking at understanding the culture of the organization or the prioritization of this change initiative with everything else that's going on in the organization, stakeholder mapping. We're thinking about, how to share the vision of the change, and, is there a new or modified process or policy? Do we have business process changes? Do we have behavior or performance measurement changes? And then are we changing the structure, the reporting structure, or the organizational structure of the organization to throughout this change? So that's kind of our thought about organizational change. Many times I'm thinking about how does the structure of the organization support the individual in their effort to change? Because at the individual level of change, we are addressing an individual's unique perspectives and biases and motivations and their experience and their behavior, their mindset, their resilience, their reactions, their resistance to the change. And then we are trying to work with them to help build this ability, this knowledge and skill base so that they know how to operate in the new world, in this future state. And then our sponsor is working also with individuals to help them recognize this change and to feel and know that they have support from their leadership in the difficulties that they might encounter in adopting this change. And so we may even have some coaching to help people move through an individual change. But the essence of project management and change management together are to add value. That's the essence of of two of them. They are two sides of a whole. They are two distinct disciplines that really dovetail well together when we integrate that project management plan and that change management plan. If you have questions or would love to learn more about organizational change management and project management and how the two are combined, please visit our website, www.springboard-consult.com. And you can see that we have a lot of tools and opportunities for you to learn more. We have an Ready Set CCMP community that you are welcome to join. We open it 4 times a year, so you are welcome to join when it's open, and it helps people to really have a community of change professionals who are also working on projects and also working together to ensure that they pass the CCMP exam. We also have Ready, Set, Change, Accelerated Training and Exam Prep. And that's our signature course that we run 3 times a year. Our 2025 calendar starts in February of 2025. So if you're interested in learning more about organizational change management and how it relates to project management, how the two work together to help people move from that current state to the future state to really realize the benefits of the change, then please join us. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.